We're in the heart of a regular, at first sight, German village called Old Mannheim. The church is on the left, the German pub is on the right, but Google Maps keeps insisting this place isn't real. The arrow can't even pick up the street we're on. Google Maps is sure we're standing in the middle of a field. There are countless places like this in Germany, and their number keeps growing. Dozens of villages have been cleared so Germany could dig one of the biggest holes in the country. This process has already changed 444,000 acres of rural land, and since 1924, 313 settlements have been lost in the country because of it. But what's the point of all this? Well, without these strange projects, I wouldn't have anything to make videos about, and I'd probably drink less coffee. I'll go make some now. Here's an intrusive reminder, only for the people who actually hit the like button. And thanks for understanding my wish to stay anonymous. Do you know what the controlled, deliberate destruction of a village looks like? Everything is torn down without exception. Centuries-old churches, family homes, farmland, even the cemetery is leveled to the ground. The majority of Old Mannheim's residents have sold their houses to the energy company RWE, which runs the mines, and moved to the newly built New Mannheim, located a bit farther down the road. They even took the street names with them, and the graves had to be dug up. But the most interesting thing is that most people in this coal region have gotten used to what's happening. People knew for 30 or 40 years that their village would one day be destroyed. Although older people, of course, are especially upset, they don't protest. Though there are still protests when people from the villages leave their homes after being forced out, activists often take over. Sometimes they build little houses in trees and put up posters all over. In the ravine, there are dozens of tents, and all these people are fighting to preserve the already settled villages, doing everything they can to save them from the approaching pit. But why are these German villages being destroyed in the first place? All because of coal. And not just any coal, but a type called lignite. It's found near the surface, which is why lignite is usually mined in large open-pit quarries instead of underground. Normally, once the coal is gone, they cover up the area and replant it. But the landscape is changed irreversibly. So if you look at how these quarries look over the years, it feels like they're moving, crawling across the ground, devouring everything in their way. Actually, it's in Germany where the second and third largest coal mines in Europe are located, the Hambach mine and the Garsweiler mine. Both are in North Rhine-Westphalia. It just so happens that this is also the most densely populated German region. Cities like Dusseldorf and Cologne are here. But in this area, starting from the late 1940s, about 50 villages were cleared to make space for coal mines, mines where they dig up lignite. Germany's the largest producer of lignite in the world, and this industry has shaped both the landscape and the lives of local communities for generations. Besides destroying and rebuilding villages, forests, and farmland, the mines provided a steady stream of jobs for thousands of people. So as I said, there are two biggest coal mines in Europe and Germany. The Hambach mine, an open-pit coal mine, now covers an area of 18 square miles, even though a total of 33 square miles is allocated for mining. It's the deepest open-pit mine relative to sea level. The bottom of the mine, which reaches depths of up to 1,640 feet, lies 980 feet below sea level. To create this coal pit, most of the ancient Hambach forest, which had been growing there since the last ice age, was destroyed. Only 10% of the forest remains. Garsweiler mine also covers 18 square miles and got its name from the village that used to be there. It's estimated that more than 30,000 people were relocated when the mine was created in the early 1980s, and it's all for the sake of lignite. Germany is the world leader in its extraction, with reserves estimated at about 40.5 billion tons. That's a lot. To mine all this lignite, Germany digs in several regions. You can identify 3 regions where such mines are still active, and they're all open pit: the Rhine area, Lusatia, and central Germany. Let's take, for example, the mines that are located in the Lusatia region. The mining of lignite began here in 1860. Back then it was used to power steam engines and trains, and also in the production of clothing. In 1882, Lusatia saw the opening of the first briquette factory in Europe. That was just the beginning, because by around 1900, lignite mining became truly large-scale. Today, the energy company LEAG, the second largest in Germany, runs 4 open-pit mines in Lusatia. The Jenswalde and Weltsaftsid mines are located in Brandenburg. Nachten and Reichwalde are in Saxony. Together, they contain about 825 million tons of lignite. But here's the thing. Experts say that Germany has the technical, economic, and financial capacity to maintain its power grid without destroying more villages, though it's a lot more complicated than it might seem at first glance. First of all, it's worth mentioning that lignite is the most polluting type of coal. Lignite is responsible for 20% of carbon emissions in the country. It's all about lower density. This means that to produce 1 unit of energy, you need to burn more fuel. In this sense, coal is more efficient, plus it releases less CO2 when burned. Meanwhile, lignite contains 25 to 35% carbon and has the lowest energy content among all types of coal. For comparison, the best type of coal has 86 to 97% carbon, and a slightly worse type contains 45 to 86% carbon. So maybe Germany is forced to use low-quality lignite because there's no other choice? Nope. They've got black coal too, which they mined for ages. But recently, Germany's been rolling out a plan to get rid of it. Although black coal is exactly the type of coal that contains 45 to 86% carbon. However, it just so happened that the German coal industry went through a process of restructuring for several decades. Production volumes, the number of mines, and employees kept shrinking. On December 31st, 2018, coal mining in Germany completely stopped. The last 2 mines were closed, and now they're only open to tourists. Work inside has stopped. But even though Germany stopped mining coal, it still needs it. How can they get coal, which is crucial for the country, if it's no longer being mined? Imports, of course, or using other coal that's still being mined. Around 90% of lignite's used to generate electricity and provide centralized heating at state-owned and industrial power plants. It's pretty much irreplaceable since coal and lignite together make up nearly 22% of primary energy consumption. It's also a key source of energy for power production. In 2017, for instance, coal and lignite accounted for about 37% of total electricity generation. In May 2018, 20,821 people were employed in the lignite sector, including mining, power plant operations, and everything like that. You can't just shut down an entire sphere of human activity in one day. Too many people would lose their jobs. Besides, stopping the extraction of lignite means depriving the country of an energy source. Yes, lignite-based electricity production in Germany fell to its lowest level since 1963 in 2023. I won't even mention black coal. In total, coal power accounts for about 26%, but that's a lot. Yes, it's a low number, but still too much to shut down production without major consequences. Just to make it clearer, let's put it in numbers. Germany's population is 84.6 million people. That's a pretty big number. So if Germany decided right now to stop mining all its coal, the country wouldn't have enough power for 22 million people. That's a little less than 6 Berlins completely out of power, or 2 Swedens. So despite all the harm and the relatively low energy value of lignite, simply closing these sprawling mines isn't going to work. They need to be replaced with something, but wind turbines and solar farms can't be built overnight. On top of that, they won't offer jobs to everyone who's currently employed in lignite-related industries. And don't forget that this coal is cheap, and there's a lot of it. The infrastructure's already in place, all the costs for mining pay off. No need to come up with something new because the system's already up and running. This is probably the main argument for any harmful human activity. And coal power plants are really harmful. In 2021, they topped the list of the biggest sources of emissions in Europe. What's more, all of the top 10 biggest sources of emissions in 2021 were from coal and lignite mining operations. And guess where they're located? In Germany. Well, and in Poland. 53% of all emissions come from just these 2 countries. The largest coal mine in Europe's actually located in Poland. The German ones, which I've already mentioned, take 2nd and 3rd place in this coal leaderboard. All right, we need to admit that CO2 emissions in Germany have been steadily decreasing since 1963. Since then, they've gone down by more than 3.5 times. See for yourself. In 1960, 700 million metric tons of carbon dioxide were released into the atmosphere, and by 2020, the amount had dropped to 199 million metric tons. However, after that, the emissions started to rise again a little, reaching 242 million metric tons in 2022. But hey, 242 is still a lot less than 700. Unfortunately, despite these major cutbacks, Germany remains one of the biggest polluters of our atmosphere through burning coal. Actually, if you look at global CO2 emissions from burning coal in 2022 by country, you'll find Germany in 9th place. And it just seems unfair. I mean, the top 3 spots are taken by China, India, and the USA, bigger countries with much more land and way larger populations. Germany's still in the top 10, and in 2023 the situation became really grim. Germany has the highest national GDP among all EU countries, which is definitely a plus. But at the same time, the largest economy in Europe released around 572 million metric tons of carbon dioxide. That's a little more than the combined emissions of Italy and Poland. And Poland, by the way, has the largest coal mine. All right, so we know what's up with the pollution, but what about alternatives to this coal madness? Actually, they do exist. European countries are already trying to meet their CO2 reduction targets, moving away from fossil fuels towards nuclear power. For example, in 2022, nuclear power plants generated about 21.8% of the total electricity produced in the EU. But in Germany, the situation is completely different. Because in 2023, it shut down its last 3 nuclear power plants, and with climate change, the push to speed up the phase-out of fossil fuels, and the energy crisis, this decision seems odd, illogical. No wonder it sparked serious criticism, since not everyone gets the context. It's important to consider the post-war socio-political events in Germany, where anti-nuclear sentiments emerged long before talks about climate, carbon emissions, and all that. Germany as a nation is against anything nuclear. There are films about it. People protest against nuclear energy. Even the biggest demonstration in history, which took place in the capital of West Germany, Bonn, was all about shutting down nuclear power plants. Protesters came from all over West Germany, and the police counted around 100,000 people. There are several strong reasons behind the Germans' dislike of nuclear energy. There's distrust of technocracy, worries about the environment, ecology, and safety, as well as concerns that nuclear energy could lead to the spread of nuclear weapons. And in general, it's hard to argue with these points. Solar and wind power are proposed as alternatives to nuclear energy, and they do seem to be genuinely safer. It's true that at some point the country did start developing nuclear energy, but this lasted until the Fukushima disaster in 2011. The reaction of the Germans was intense. Mass protests with 250,000 people and a shocking defeat for the Green Party in the elections. In the end, they had to go back to the plan for a gradual phase-out of nuclear energy, and such sentiments have remained among the population ever since. Even in 2022, during the peak of the recent energy crisis, 52% of Germans were against building new reactors. So it turns out that the most obvious solution, which other countries use after giving up coal, simply doesn't work here. Coal is still an issue and it needs to be dealt with soon. Well, not exactly soon. Germany promised to stop burning coal by 2038, falling at least 8 years behind 16 other European countries. They've pledged to phase out coal by the end of this decade or earlier. For comparison, Italy says it'll gradually phase out coal by 2025, so 2038 is really far away. Some experts are hoping that the transition away from coal could be moved to 2030, but that's the best-case scenario, far from the likely reality. This is what Germany's energy sector looks like today. A power plant burns coal right next to wind turbines. If you like metaphors, you could say it's the past along with the future. It's expected that the coal mines will eventually be filled in, and some land areas that were once meant to be destroyed will remain untouched. This includes, by the way, the last remaining part of the ancient Hambach forest. Now the community faces a new task, creating a new future for the region after coal. Because it's obvious that without nuclear energy, Germany has only one option left: renewable energy. But wind turbines require way fewer workers than mines, and that means thousands of people will lose their jobs. Research parks for artificial intelligence, hydrogen production centers, and quantum computing, all of these are seen as potential new industries. Some experts hope they'll create even more jobs than before. Plus, 63% of people working in coal will be hitting retirement age by 2030, so layoffs among current workers can largely be avoided. But only if we really do phase out coal by 2030, which is a pretty pie-in-the-sky scenario. It's really important to realize that Germany's coal phase-out plan doesn't come close to meeting green guidelines. For one, the EU needs to stop using coal by 2030 if it's going to meet the Paris Agreement target, which all member countries have signed up for. But this whole situation doesn't look at all like a country that's moving away from coal. It's more like a country that's really into using it. It's not enough to just stop mining coal. We also need to fix the damage that mining has done to nature. It's planned that in North Rhine-Westphalia, 2 mines, including Hambach Mine, will be filled with water to create lakes. Just so you know, it's not as simple as filling a pool. The process will take around 100 years due to the size of the mines. Another one, Garsweiler Mine, might be filled with soil to make room for new communities to be built there. Another idea is to cover the Hambach mine pit with solar panels so the place can keep generating power, but in a more eco-friendly way now. In Lusatia, the LEAG company plans to reforest 53% of the area, create lakes on 25%, fields on 10%, and roads and other tourist facilities on the remaining 12% of the affected land. And overall, that sounds like a decent plan. What do you think? Life after lignite. Yes, the coal industry is essential for Germany, but it comes with a big environmental cost. Just about an hour-and-a-half drive southeast of Berlin, there's a tiny village called Pritzen. This place, perched on a peninsula, was miraculously saved from destruction, and once again it all comes down to lignite. Back in the 1980s, nearby villages were torn down to make way for an expanding coal mine. Pritzen village was also under threat of being erased. By 1987, nearly all 500 residents had left their homes because of the choking dust and noise from the mine, not to mention the looming threat of demolition. In 1992, after most of the town was torn down, including the old church and cemetery, the decision was finally made to shut down the mine and flood it. Pritzen, left teetering on the edge of a 230-foot drop, miraculously survived and began to come back to life. People returned and started fixing up the ruined houses, replanting fields, and growing new gardens. Life, in short, went back to how it used to be. Now the village is once again a quiet little spot with beautiful views. And only the flooded mine reminds you that coal was ever mined here. The end of the village. The village of Mühlrose, located in eastern Germany and dating back to the 18th century, hasn't been as lucky. It's survived wars, fires, cruel owners, the country's divide, and later reunification. But today, its 200 residents are being forced to leave their homes to make way for an expanding coal mine. It's hardly surprising that Mühlrose was picked for coal mining. The village sits right in the region where the Czech Republic, Poland, and what used to be East Germany meet, right in the heart of Europe's coal industry. Sure, Germany's working to speed up its shift to renewable energy, but that change hasn't happened yet, and coal still powers most of the electricity. Most of the buildings in the village are already gone, leaving just a few houses surrounded by warning signs saying no trespassing. On the horizon, you can see plumes of steam rising from the cooling towers of the power plant running on this very coal. In short, it's a pretty bleak scene. But don't think people were just sent off into the middle of nowhere. A representative from LEAG, the company handling both coal mining and relocation, insists that they've taken every possible step to make the move comfortable. Continuation of work. As I already mentioned, Germany's planning to shift to green energy, but giving up coal is a tough challenge. They initially planned to close at least 20 coal plants across the country, but now these plants are either being reactivated or having their operational lives extended to keep the energy supply stable. Besides, keeping coal plants running is crucial to keep the coal business profitable. For example, in the city of Marl, there's a massive furnace where coal turns into energy, powering a chemical plant through winter and helping keep over 10,000 jobs. Elsewhere in Germany, near Dortmund, a coal power plant runs at full capacity, generating enough energy to power around 1.3 million homes. But you know what? Even environmental organizations admit that, under current conditions, using coal might be the best temporary solution. But what about the huge amount of CO2, global warming, and all that? Well, the government's thinking about it, of course, and plans to offset every ton of CO2 produced by burning coal by reducing emissions in other sectors of the economy. But for now, that's just a plan. Instead, the authorities allowed operators to increase coal use to ensure the country's heating and economic stability. The mines won. Here's another fact that clearly shows how much Germany still needs coal and how weak its efforts to quit are. In the North Rhine-Westphalia region, they started tearing down a wind farm in 2023. This is needed to increase the area of the Garsweiler 2 coal mine. The energy company RWE has already removed one turbine and plans to demolish 7 more to extract between 15 and 20 million tons of lignite. Of course, this has sparked outrage among environmental defenders. They emphasize that, well, basically everything I've already mentioned. Lignite gives off less heat than other kinds of coal, but it emits massive amounts of carbon dioxide. It also has toxic heavy metals, making it the most hazardous to health. In response to this, a representative of RWE stated that expanding the mine is most significant operational plan under the mining law. Furthermore, the German government said that expanding the coal mine is necessary due to the energy crisis. After coal mining ends, which, as you may recall, isn't set to happen until at least 2030, the German authorities plan to turn the mining area into a whole series of lakes. This step will be part of the country's shift toward renewable energy and efforts to restore the environment after years of resource exploitation. According to the government, creating these lakes will not only improve the ecological situation, but could also become a tourist attraction, drawing visitors and boosting the local economy. Balcony power. Good news, now anyone can set up their own power station at home. In 2024, a compact solar panel was presented at a fair in Berlin, one that's easy to put on your balcony. That way, the sun's energy comes straight into your house. Could you put a coal power station on your balcony? Of course not. That's why the solar panel's better. Yes, small solar panels generate enough energy just to charge a laptop or run a small fridge. But this could spark a real revolution in homes all over Germany. Wait, actually, it's already happening. The demand for individual solar panels is rising in the country, with panels available in major stores for around $217. According to the New York Times, more than 500,000 of these systems have already been installed across the country, and recent changes in the law that make it easier to install solar panels are only increasing public interest. Basically, these panels bring environmental changes to people's lives without the need for big investments, calling an electrician, or using any special tools. You don't have to drill anything, just grab the panels and hang them on your balcony, and then you get free energy. Profit! Yet another intrusive reminder, you owe me a like. See you later.